Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a Monday morning. Start as you mean to go on and all that jazz. Good turnout, so thank you so much for making the effort to join. So today we welcome you to the UKATA webinar on respiratory protection and the UKATA, it's UK asbestos industry. Bit of a tongue tie there. So we're in collaboration with 3M and we have George Elliott here. Morning, George.
Morning, Kellyanne, and thanks for having me today.
No, thank you. I think this is a webinar that's been on our hot list, so thank you so much for agreeing to do this today. For those that don't know me, my name is Kellyanne Smith, and I am the Events and Marketing Coordinator at UKATA. As normal, I'll be introducing the webinar, going through some housekeeping, and I will be in the background if anyone needs me for technical support. So let's go into the housekeeping. So we will be running the webinar for around about an hour. If we do go over with the Q&A, that's fine. Any questions that are not answered, George is kindly offered to answer them at a later date. You will notice that all the attendees, your microphones are off. It's nothing personal, it's just so it doesn't cause any disruption as George is presenting. I do ask if you can use the Q&A for any questions. Please ignore the chat box as that may get missed and it may get ignored, but again, it's nothing personal. We just need to focus on the Q&A. Attendees, you can put your questions in during the presentation and after. Please take advantage of this opportunity and ask all the questions that you do have. Was another thing, so this is being recorded. Everyone will get a thank you email with the recording link, and there will be a feedback form if you could take the moment just to fill that out. I do hope you enjoyed today's webinar. Here at UKATA, we are really excited. So without further ado, over to you, George.
Wonderful, Kellyanne, and thanks again for having me here today to present. And apologies about the length of the title. Tongue twister now, having looked at it again. So yeah, we're here today to talk around respiratory protection and I guess some key considerations when it comes to the asbestos industry. But before we get on to talking about some of the content, just a little bit about myself. So my name is George Elliott, and I've been working for the 3M Personal Safety Division now for coming up to 11 years. And my area of expertise is respiratory specialist. So I will support our end users, our distributors, primarily on three key areas when it comes to respiratory protective equipment and PPE. So let me just bring up my pointer here because I do like to use that during presentations. So really myself and my team focus on three core areas, and they're shown with the images, or tried to be shown with some of the images here. So the first one is around selection, so making sure that product selected is both adequate and suitable. I'll talk about a couple of those topics a little bit later. You know, you might be in a procurement role, you might be in a health and safety role. We know you're spending an awful lot of time and investment when it comes to finding, you know, what solutions might be right. We're here to help you make sure that, you know, the products selected are both adequate and suitable, which then hopefully leads on to them being worn and people being compliant at all times that they need to be. Second piece kind of leads on to that compliance angle is training. So myself and my team spend a lot of time training, be it our own webinars, working with third parties. When there's a specific topic that maybe members have asked about, it might be kind of boots on the ground training. So hands-on training, care, maintenance, decontamination, which we know is a key issue within the asbestos industry. So we work heavily to make sure people know why they're wearing it, how to wear it, how to maintain it, how to clean it, and keep it usable, serviceable for the next use. And then the final piece to the puzzle is the thumbs up. This is really talking about validation, and certainly when we're talking about validation in the context of respiratory protection, we're really talking about compatibility and fit. So making sure that the products that maybe you're wearing or your teams are wearing are both going to be compatible. You know, they're going to work together. They're not going to impede or affect the ability to protect of one item versus another. But then when we talk about respiratory protection, we're talking about face fit testing. So making sure, you know, people that are wearing tight fitting respirators are face fit tested. For my sins, I'm a Fit to Fit accredited fit tester, both on qualitative and quantitative via the port account, and have been for the last probably 9 years or so, because I've just gone for my third accreditation across those two. So please do connect in with me on LinkedIn. This is normally the point at which I regret saying that, because my phone, which is here, hopefully on silent, starts lighting up. So please do connect in, because we can continue conversations. I will provide my email address at the end and some other contact details, but please do connect in on LinkedIn. It's always great to interact with those that maybe I'm presenting to, don't meet in real life, but we can connect virtually. I'm just going to leave this on screen here, possibly while I just make sure my phone is on silent. Just some information with regards to the context of this webinar. Okay, so just to reinforce, this is very much aimed towards the asbestos sector. Everything we're portraying at the moment is correct as the time that we are presenting. So there we go. I will now move on to the agenda. Quite a packed agenda. There will be time for questions at the end. So please do start adding those into the Q&A, as Kellyanne said. So we'll be looking at the different types of RPE specifications for both licensed and non-licensed asbestos work. We'll then be looking at specific RPE selection considerations. You know, there are going to be multiple options when it comes to what could be used for licensed and non-licensed work. Then we're going to be looking at cleaning and decontamination considerations. Now, each site, each work activity is going to be different. So I'm going to talk about this from a general point of view, but I would certainly encourage you to work with whichever is your RPE manufacturer or distributor to make sure you got the right information from them to then insert that within your own risk assessment and your own cleaning and decontamination facilities as well. We'll then talk about face fit testing, we'll talk about facial hair, and then we'll talk about kind of accessories, maintenance, record keeping, and I did have some kind of pre-submitted questions as well, so hopefully I'm going to be able to cover those. And just looking at my phone now, I can see I've got 4 invites so far, so thank you for connecting in with me there. And as I said, we'll hopefully cover some questions at the end. What I first want to start with is just to set the scene that certainly, yes, we as 3M are PPE manufacturers, but PPE should always be seen as that last line of defense. So certainly I am primarily going to be talking about PPE and respiratory protective equipment during this presentation, but it should be used and seen in the context of the hierarchy control. So I just wanted to set the scene before we begin. But of course, we do know within the asbestos industry, PPE is always going to have a place within employers' risk assessment, within the requirements from the health and safety executive, and we'll talk about some of those examples as we go through. So I just wanted to set the scene. We are talking about PPE, but that's not to eliminate other hierarchy control factors and control measures further up the value chain. So we're going to start with RPE, respiratory protective equipment for non-licensed work with asbestos. And I've got two individuals here which are going to factor throughout the presentation. I haven't given them names. Maybe you could put some in the chat there. So we've got an individual who is doing some non-licensed work on the right-hand side here, and then someone who's doing some licensed work. So there is this difference between the two. But first, we're going to be looking at the individual who's carrying out the non-licensed work. So as I'm sure a lot of you are already aware and have got access to the information, you know, the health and safety executive do have significant amount of information when it comes to asbestos considerations, approved code of practices, essential sheets that I've drawn across here. So certainly we as manufacturers, probably like you as users or those that are in procurement or trainers, will look at what they say in terms of, right, well, these are the requirements, these are the approved processes or code of practices. So this is where I've drawn the primary amount of information from, and then I can obviously add a little bit more information with regards to, right, well, what does that mean in the context of what products have been outlined. So some key pieces of information when it comes to non-licensed work: the asbestos essential sheets, so HSG 210, and within that there are two very useful information or essentials documents which talk around PPE, including respiratory protective equipment, and then decontamination, removal, disposal, etc. So when it comes to what is outlined within the document when it comes to, or documents when it comes to respiratory protective equipment, I think the primary piece of information is, as a minimum requirement, we're looking at a disposable FFP3, so disposable respirator rated to FFP3 or approved to FFP3, or a half mask fitted with P3 filters. So both of those, and it's an FFP3 that's used in the image here, can provide what we call an assigned protection factor of 20. So if you see APF, that is designating an assigned protection factor of 20, and that is the highest protection factor you're going to get with a disposable respirator or a half mask fitted with P3 filters. Essentially, when it comes to assigned protection factors, we're looking at the protection that the respirator can provide. So I like to think of it as a kind of a ratio. So for every 20 particles on the outside, there's potential for ingress of one of those particles. So these products are not 100% efficient. Okay, these aren't the standards aren't designed that they are 100% efficient, but this is the highest level of protection you can be afforded through a disposable respirator or half mask with P3 filters. Okay, so there are other products which are available, which I'll talk about a little bit later, certainly as we move on to some of the licensed asbestos work. But really, when we're talking about non-licensed work, it's this minimum assigned protection factor of 20. And some things to consider which maybe aren't always picked up on, and I think this was certainly discussed in some of the questionnaire responses that the team sent me, is compatibility. So within the guidance, it also mentions the use of sealed goggles. So we need to make sure there's compatibility and adequate fit between the two items there, and then also making sure that coveralls, the hood of the coverall, is worn over the respiratory protective equipment straps. Quite often I'll see images, and this might be in the media, of straps worn over coveralls. Really, we should be having the straps worn against the head and then coveralls over the top. And with these devices, with these disposable respirators, half masks, these are tight fitting products. Individuals need to be face fit tested and also need to be clean shaven where the respirator seals to the face. So what do these possible products look like? So when it comes to disposable respirators, we can see examples of two here. The benefit of these, in the clue is in the name, they are disposable. So there's the kind of simplicity, ease of use, ease of disposal after use. There's no need to hold on to the product, clean, decontamination. They're single use. When that activity has been completed, they can be then disposed of, generally with other asbestos waste. Okay, and like said, these devices are FFP3 rated, or you need to be making sure you found an FFP3 rated, providing you with that assigned protection factor of 20. And again, face fit testing requirement and individuals to be clean shaven. So then moving on to reusable respirator, and I've got a couple of examples here. So the one on the right hand side has a single P3 particulate filter at the front, but then there'll be other products across the market which have two filters which go either side, generally of an exhalation valve, and I probably didn't touch on that with the disposable respirators, but these types of products and some disposable respirators also have exhalation valves to allow the warm exhale air to escape from the respirator through that valve, but when you're breathing in, the contaminants are going through the filter media or filters that may be in place. So these filters here are P3, providing that assigned protection factor of 20. There are some manufacturers that will have compatible filters between both half masks, full face masks, and then powered air turbo devices. So this type of filter here can possibly be used with other 3M powered air equipment and also full face masks as well. So there's potential benefits there in terms of having one filter for a variety of different face pieces and respiratory protection options. These products generally are going to be used, maintained, cleaned, decontaminated, and manufacturers should be able to provide you with information with regards to how to clean, how to decontaminate, and also spares and accessories which are available as well. And these products as well, some will have built-in seal check functionality. Does not replace a face fit test, but there are some products on the market where you can press a button, close a valve, take a breath in, take a breath out, and you're really looking to see if the respirator is sealed around the face and if there's any gaps around the face as well. So it does not replace a face fit test, but you're starting to get products where you can actually perform some in-depth seal checks before you go into that work environment. So like I said, and I think it's picked up in some of the comments which the team sent me in preparation, compatibility is a key topic when you're trying to combine a respirator with eye protection, possibly hearing protection, depending on what activities taking place. All of these items are competing for space on your face. So make sure that they are not considered in isolation. And this kind of leading on to face fit testing a little bit later, make sure that all head worn PPE is worn for your face fit test. Okay, so make sure that the work that you're completing, and you might be wearing an ensemble of head worn PPE, your face fit test is done to reflect that and replicate that ensemble on the face. So something to consider. And again, working with your manufacturer distributor, they might have some compatibility information or be able to say to you, these goggles have had some anecdotal good results in terms of compatibility with this respirator. Maybe this goggle isn't quite right for that respirator because of X, Y, and Z in terms of its shape, in terms of its form. So certainly suggestion to work with your manufacturer on that front. So we're going to now revert to the individual carrying out license work on the left hand side. You can already start to see a difference when it comes to what this individual is wearing. One thing that you can't see is actually the individual has got a waist mounted powered air device on his back, which we'll talk about a little bit later. There are other possible solutions as well. But I appreciate that it doesn't quite tell the full story from the image here, but hopefully by the end of this portion, you'll see some of the key products that can be considered. So where to get the information from? So I guess, when we are asked about this topic, two sources that we kind of go to, and there's an array of different information from those sources, but principally two documents from the Health and Safety Executive. So the core approved code of practice and guidance within the asbestos industry, so control of asbestos regulations 2012, the approved code of practice, which is I guess supplementary to that. There is also a very in-depth information guide, which is known as the Asbestos Licensed Contractors Guide from the Health and Safety Executive. And then ARCA have got a very in-depth document, or lots of documents within the suite, but a very comprehensive document when it comes to respiratory protective equipment itself. So again, a really good document, and lots of comparisons between the two, but maybe slightly worded in different ways. maybe slightly easier to interpret for some people in one document to another, but very complementary to each other. So what's the key information when it comes to guidance from the HSE for asbestos workers, licensed asbestos workers? So within the approved code of practice, clearly stating here for licensable work inside enclosures, power assisted full face piece respirators fitted with P3 filters should be worn. Okay, so I think this is certainly from what we've seen and backed up with ARCA, this is industry best practice and is seen throughout the industry. So a power assisted full face respirator, which is worn by the individual, powered by a battery worn on the back of the individual, powering a motor, powering a motor to draw air through, taking it through a filter, taking it up to the individual and providing them with filtered air to protect them from that working environment. Now, the HSE do outline alternatively similar or high performance equipment can be used, e.g. powered hoods or blouses or air-fed equipment. Now, I will talk about air-fed equipment a little bit later. There have been some conversations, certainly in the information I was provided, with the topic around powered hoods, blouses for those that have maybe got facial hair. Disadvantage with these types of devices is the, I guess, lack of ability to sufficiently clean, decontaminate for continued use, which is why these types of devices, as will come clear a little bit later, certainly manufacturers have got some really in-depth information on how they can be worn within showers, how they can be cleaned, how they can be decontaminated, and set aside for use the next day, the next week, etc. So the agency do outline, there is clearly stated within the approved code of practice consideration of powered hoods or blouses, but certainly there are issues, and I'm not saying all manufacturers, but there certainly are some issues that could be seen when it comes to these types of devices, cleaning, decontamination and reuse. There is also information when it comes to kind of ancillary work. So for those that maybe are working in and around that environment, and they might be, support staff, they might be, as is called out here, scaffolding, erection, site setup, enclosure dismantling, waste handling outside of the enclosure. This is where they actually then revert back to some of the products mentioned for non-licensed work. So disposable FFP3s, half masks with P3 filters as well. So you can see the difference between those that may be in those enclosed environments carrying out the actual activities and those that are in the ancillary activities as well. And the information from ARCA, I think, kind of backs up what the HSE say. So there are many forms of RP available, but experience has shown that the most suitable equipment for the majority of asbestos removal operations is the power-assisted respirator with a full face mask. So certainly backing up what's within the HSE approved code of practice. This equipment gives the best protection consistent with the convenience and mobility required. They do also reference what we call kind of airline or positive pressure demand airline breathing apparatus may be appropriate for specific tasks. I will talk about certain products which could be considered there, but they do outline, this does require appropriate assessment, additional training and amendment of works as well. And this document also goes into specifics when it comes to, I guess, protection level. So only powered assisted respirators marked as approved in the highest class, so TM3, should be used. And I'll talk about what TM3 means when it comes to assigned protection factors very soon. So what might that look like? And I guess specifically for license work. So like mentioned, appropriate tight fitting full face powered air device. So generally the powered air turbo is worn on the belt, or a supplied air respirator system, so providing clean, breathable quality air from an external source, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And once again, consideration to make sure that coverall hood is worn over the straps of that full face mask. Again, we are talking about full face masks here. So again, face fit testing is going to be a requirement, and individuals need to be clean shaven where that respirator seals to the face as well. So no difference from what we said a little bit earlier. So we're going to talk about some of the specific products which you may want to consider, may even be using at the moment, may even recognize, and looking at some of the selection considerations to maybe why you'd opt with one over another. So based on the information I've just shared from ARCA and the HSE, the products which I'm going to talk about on paper could be considered as adequate. Okay, so they're right for the hazard, they're right for protecting the individual to reduce the exposure to the levels required to protect their health. Okay, so that's what we talk about adequacy. On paper, they can provide the protection that is required, but then it comes down to suitability. So when I talk about suitability, I often talk about individual to that wearer. Okay, so it's not a kind of catch-all. Maybe one solution is not going to work for everyone because there's going to be different variables for individuals and the task they're performing. So we need to make sure that the product is both adequate but also suitable for that individual. So it's going to be right for them, the task and the environment that they're carrying out. Because what we don't want to do is impact and reduce their ability to perform their task, or maybe introduce additional risks when they are wearing such products. So adequacy and suitability is key here. So what do the powered air devices connected up to tight fitting face pieces look like? Well, they look like products that you can see here. So a couple of different I guess options available. We've got what you would call a powered air turbo, which is worn on the back through a belt. We have got two filters here, downward facing filters, which is very important when it comes to cleaning and decontamination, showering a little bit later. Within inside this turbo, as we call it, we have a battery and we have a motor, and that draws in air from the contaminated environment, takes it up through the filters, up through a breathing tube, and then through to the individual who's got that tight fitting face piece there. Another, I guess, similar system, but does look a little bit different. So in this case, the motor is actually housed kind of inside the actual respirator itself, connected to the filter. So this is the battery power pack worn on the waist, powering the motor, which just sits in here, and that is helping to draw air through the filter and again through to that individual who's wearing their full face mask there. Benefits with this type of device as well is the fact we've got that integrated eye and face protection as well. So as well as providing that respiratory protection, we've got integrated face eye protection as well. So that's the kind of typical powered air device. And then when we talk about airline breathing apparatus, here we're talking about providing the individual with access to an external air supply. So typically this may come from some cylinders which are maybe on racks or a trolley mechanism, and the air is then supplied through various tubing. Obviously, there's a variety of different lengths depending on what activities are being performed, and that air is then passed up through into a regulator device here, which is generally worn around the waist and over one strap of the shoulder, and that is then regulating that air pressure and taking it through to a demand valve, which is connected to the full face mask. So it is, I guess, effectively breathing on demand. So when an individual takes a breath, air is then being taken into that full face piece, and they are being provided with that breathable quality air. For those who are eagle-eyed, you will have also noticed a filter here. The benefit of that filter is if, God forbid, something was to go wrong, maybe outside someone had accidentally disconnected the couplings, or a vehicle had driven over, preventing the airflow to come through, there is an additional particulate filter there for potential egress from that environment as well. And I know that was spoken about in some of the conversations earlier, but equally apparent with this type of device here, if there was something to go wrong with the battery, for example. Of course, you should be doing pre-use checks beforehand, but if there was something to happen here, there is a particulate filter here, which does not need that motor to work. So effectively, it would be in what we call negative pressure, and that would allow someone to escape egress from that environment that they might be working in. So again, a couple of points that were raised in discussions from members when the questionnaire was sent out from the team. So yes, these powered air devices, this one here that you can see on screen here and the next one, are TM3. So turbo mask is what the acronym is, TM3 being the highest that you can get within that classification. And we are moving on from an assigned protection factor of 20 to an assigned protection factor of 40. Okay, so the APF of 20 with a disposable FFP3, for example, we're now moving on to an assigned protection factor of 40. I obviously mentioned we've got that integrated protection. So we've got eye protection, face protection built in, but this is a device and both the turbo, but also the full face visor, easy to decontaminate, can be worn within a decontamination shower, and also both the turbo and also the full face mask, very rugged for the environments that it's used in. So the other powered air device, which I mentioned, as I say, works slightly differently. So we got the battery, which is worn around the waist, connecting up or powering a motor drawing air through the filter. Again, this is rated to TM3, so the same as the previous product, that assigned protection factor of 40. And again, this type of product is easy to decontaminate as well. And as I said, if there was something to go awry, and power was not provided to the motor, then the individual could egress on the use of the particulate filter there. So those are both the powered air options. And then when it comes to the air supplied or airline options, like I said, this is the typical type of setup that would be used. Air coming from a clean source. The benefit with this and the use of a demand valve is we can actually move up to an assigned protection factor of 2000. Okay, so moving up to 2000 as your assigned protection factor. Benefit again with this type of device is you've got integrated face protection, so good field of vision, again easy to contaminate, and there's also the additional use of a negative pressure particulate filter should that be needed to be used. So there is one other very, very useful document which I certainly look at on a weekly basis or share with our customers, is HSG 53. So it's from the Health and Safety Executive, and they've got some fantastic tables which outline some of the kind of stipulations of use or considerations of use. So I've just compress some of that information just to this small table with the products that we've discussed today. So you can see each individual type of device which we've been discussing, the assigned protection factor. But one thing that I haven't spoken about so far is what the Health and Safety Executive consider the maximum for what they call continuous wear time before an individual needs to have a break. And the thing that you'll notice with the first three devices here, which is individuals actually having to breathe through a filter material, a filter, is that these, in the eyes of the HSE, can only be worn for an hour before then they need to come away from that environment, have a break, recharge their own batteries a little bit, have a drink before they then go and carry out the activity that they were completing. So just a consideration to make when you compare that to the second set of products that I've been discussing, the powered air devices and the demand flow airlines here, because in effect there's a turbo doing the work for you, or air coming from a clean air source. These devices do not need to be restrained by an hour. Okay, so continuous wear time of an hour plus. Regardless, all of these devices are tight fitting, so need to be face fit tested, but also worn by those that are clean shaven, where the respirator seals to the face. So that's the consideration of individuals. And I guess selection will be based on what the individual's task is, what the activities are, and I guess personal preference as well. You know, what do they feel most comfortable in? And then when it comes to cleaning and decontamination, like I said, we have worked with sites, with contractors to aid them with their risk assessment for cleaning decontamination. You know, we do have set information when it comes to cleaning decontamination, which you can then insert within your own risk assessment and SOPs when it comes to cleaning and decontamination. I'm going to talk generally here, certainly about one solution, but that's really just to show that all manufacturers should be able to provide you with the core information, you know, how to move through that decontamination shower if that's what's being used, what to do afterwards. So I'm going to use one example here, but really the message is all manufacturers should be able to help and support you with that. So if we take this product here, so the PF600, PF600 602E ASB asbestos. So this type of device can be worn within a contamination shower. So when it comes to the kind of core SOP, you know, the no components need to be detached when you are entering into that shower. The turbo can be left on during the showering stage. And given that the filters are facing down, this aids with reducing possible water ingress into those filters, which potentially could, you know, clog them up and then stop providing you with any respiratory protection. So yeah, filters are facing down, but of course aiming not to spray water in the filters either. Filters should be replaced after showering, so disposed of with other hazardous waste. And then once removed, the unit should be hung up. You know, should not be placed on the floor where there's potential for excessive water and whatever else might have been on the individual as well. Completion of showering and personal hygiene, and then moving on to, I guess, the kind of aftercare and further cleaning of the device thereafter. So this specific product has got some plugs, so these can be used off the back of having that shower. So plugs for the inlets, for the outlets, and then the turbo can then be cleaned in more depth. But that's not just the turbo. We can also, you know, there's also information with regards to breathing tube, the full face mask itself, and then any other accessories that might be there and available. So there are, I guess, similar cleaning decontamination routes for these other products. There is a lot of similarities, but there are some differences as well. So I didn't want to go into specifics on each one, but this is where you should really work with your manufacturer to make sure you've got the right information, and then you can, you know, uplift and put that within your risk assessment, because each kind of cleaning and decontamination procedure is going to be different for each site, maybe for individuals as well, in terms of their ability to perform some of those activities. So make sure you do work with your manufacturer of choice. And this also leads on to training considerations. You know, we appreciate the industry that you're working in, and certainly ARCA outline some guidance on within their guidance on selection, use, care, and maintenance. They're very forward when it comes to training, as they're probably right to within this industry. So outlining that each user must, you know, receive adequate instruction in the use, fitting, cleaning, and daily maintenance and inspection for each type of respirator that they used. And of course, it's the employer's duty to make sure that this is done, and there's records that are kept for that. And also, users should be reminded on a regular basis that the correct use and maintenance of the respirator is essential if protection is going to be continually provided. So making sure that, you know, people are trained sufficiently in the use of their products, how to use them, how to maintain, how to decontaminate, how to clean, how to replace parts if they're replaceable parts as well, certainly when it comes to filters. And again, manufacturers should be able to work with you to provide you with some of the information that you need. It might be some bespoke posters, it might be some of the core information, it might be extracts from the user instructions, for example. Yes, they are provided, but maybe you want some specifics there that could be used within some training material. So again, work with your manufacturer for that. So the topic of facial hair, face fit testing again came up in a lot of the comments that I received in preparation for this. So I'll firstly talk about facial hair and why it's important to be clean shaven when wearing tight fitting respirators. So if we were to take a cross section, maybe not the nicest thing to do to this individual here, but take a cross section through his face, and I guess the interaction between the respirator and his face. So you can see here the pink is his face, is his skin. The thin grey line there is effectively the respiratory protective device fitting against his skin. And then if we think of this brown circle as a hair follicle, hair follicles can be 60 micron to 120, 140 microns. When we're talking about the particle sizes of many different hazards, be it asbestos, be it others, these are going to be generally smaller than that hair follicle. Okay, so if you imagine multiple hair follicles across the skin, that is going to be potential leak paths, ingress paths for not only particles that might be 5 microns, but particles that are smaller than that, bigger than that as well. So this is why individuals need to be clean shaven where that respirator is sealing to the face. There's a really good research report from the HSE, RR1052. I think I've got a link there at the bottom of the screen, which talks about some tests that they carried out, which validated that the only way to have that consistency is for individuals to be clean shaven when wearing these tight fitting devices. So as well as being clean shaven, individuals need to be face fit tested, because what we want to make sure is that seal between the respirator and the individual is tight. Air will always try and take the path of least resistance. We want it to go through the filter material or the filters that are used, but if it possibly finds a gap around the face piece, air is always going to take the path of least resistance and go towards and inside that gap and negate you wearing that product. So individuals need to be face fit tested. Now the fit test is the responsibility of the employer. So it's a requirement, it's an expectation that the HSE would have, and they would expect to see fit test records of individuals and the products that they have been face fit tested on. That is not to be confused with a fit check or a seal check, which can be done on the vast majority of respirators, which is that kind of daily check, that daily assurance when you don the respirator, have you done it to the best of your abilities? Many different ways of performing it, but in effect, you're either looking to close up valves, close up respirator material, take a breath in, take a breath out, depending how the product works, to look to see if you can feel any air escaping or coming in around that seal to the face before you go into that working environment. So both, I would say, well, certainly seal check, fit check is good practice, but it's going to be a requirement for face fit testing of all tight fitting face pieces. So there are two, I guess, overall methods of face fit testing. There's qualitative method, and then there are quantitative methods, because there are multiples when it comes to quantitative. I won't go into huge depth on these. This is a topic in itself, and be more than happy to come back if ever I was invited, because I'm more than happy to do a whole session on the different types of face fit testing options. But when it comes to qualitative fit testing, this is often known as a taste test. The ability for an individual to taste, or hopefully not taste, an aerosol sprayed into a hood, because that aerosol should be captured by the particulate filter or filters. But but if an individual can taste that solution, which is either sweet or bitter, it's indicating that there's a break in that seal and that product is maybe not going to be suitable for them, or they've not fitted it correctly. Now, that is going to be suitable for disposable respirators and half masks, but not for full face masks. So when you have got individuals who are wearing full face masks, it needs to be through one of the many quantitative fit testing methods. Quantitative fit testing is generally using some kind of software to either look at particle ingress or air pressure or pressure affecting the seal to the respirator. Lots of different options available on the market. I can't go into too much depth with the time available, but if you're thinking full face mask, it needs to be through a quantitative method. Benefit with this method or methods is that you can also do half masks, and as long as it's not the controlled negative pressure method of quantitative face fit testing, also disposable respirators as well. If you want any more details on that, we've got some great white papers on fit testing, so do let me know off the back of this. So just to recap, certainly when it comes to full face mask, it's going to be through a quantitative method. Now, another point which was raised in some of the questions is when to repeat face fit testing. So maybe it's easier for me to start with specific information from the HSE with regards to kind of regularity of repeat fit testing. So within the document that you can see here, it is outlining annual fit testing for workers involved in licensed asbestos removal. So I think that's probably a good place to start when it comes to good practice in the eyes of the HSE for repeat face fit testing. But please also consider the HSE outline that if there is a change in facial circumstance, so an individual loses weight, gains weight, maybe has dental work, has any facial changes, scars, moles removed, effects of aging, face piercings, or an introduction of other head-worn PPE, a new face fit test needs to be completed. Okay. Face fit testing needs to be completed by a competent individual. Again, if you want more information on what makes a competent individual, please do let me know. Although if there's one thing to take away from face fit testing is please do visit the British Safety Industry Federation's website, fit2fit.org. Use your search engine as well. Got some really good information when it comes to face fit testing, but also has got a list of accredited competent face fit testers, and you might spot my name as well there. Like I mentioned at the top of the webinar, I've recently gone through my re-accreditation. So some really good resources available there. And then what I think maybe the final portion before we move on to any Q&A is just a consideration of accessories which might be available. So certainly when we're looking at a full face mask, there's a full suite of accessories and spares, and that's also the same for the turbos as well, the powered air system. So just as an example here, one of the turbos that I was discussing a little bit earlier, all the different spare parts, accessories which are available, and then when it comes to the full face or a full face mask, for example, you can see a wide range of accessories, spare parts, consumables, which can be used. One of which is quite often overlooked, or maybe people don't quite know, where to find the information, is prescription inserts. So depending on what full face mask is being used, you should be able to work with your manufacturer to find the right product code for prescription inserts, which you can then take to your optician to then go and get your prescription cut into that there. So again, something to consider for those that may be needing prescription specs. And then there's other things as well, just for consideration. There are accessories for breathing tubes, so outer covers or sheaths to reduce potential contaminant buildup as well. So lots of things to consider when it comes to what's the core product and then what are the accessibles and consumables that are available. And it certainly is advisable, work with your manufacturer. I've repeated this many times, but they will have some great resources for you, be it fitting posters, fitting videos, bill of material sheets for looking for spares, care and maintenance, brochures, booklets, information and guidance on annual servicing, because there'll be certain products that are going to need annual servicing as well. So do work with your manufacturer, and also it's the simple things like care and maintenance documents. These devices you're going to be keeping, the reusable ones at least, keeping for a prolonged period of time. The HSE have an expectation that you keep care and maintenance records on a monthly basis to outline, when things were checked, how they've been maintained, parts that have been changed, for example, filter changeouts, but also manufacturers will provide you with kind of pre-use inspections, post-use inspections as well. So do work with them, because it's often the likes of me that work on these materials. So I certainly want them to be used, because it's only a benefit, hopefully, to yourselves. So I wanted to finish with 15 minutes for questions. Like I said, I've got time thereafter. So if question period does spill over, then certainly we can go on a little bit further. So I will dip in to look at the questions in a second. But just to close, while I do try and multitask and start to look at the Q&A, please do utilize us as a resource. We do have a health and safety helpline, which is available, accessible 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Looks like I'm remiss and I haven't actually added the email address for the helpline, so I'll add that into the chat so you can record that. But please also link in with me. I've got my email address there if you want some further information. And it looks like Stephen, Xavier, Matthew, Tony, Sean, Craig, Michelle, thanks all for connecting with me on LinkedIn. So again, we can continue that conversation there. I can see maybe some of your posts around this subject matter, and you might see some of mine and my colleagues as well. I'll leave that on screen, I think, while we look at the questions.
Amazing, George. Thank you so much. A really detailed presentation. So shall we head? I know we have got a few questions. I don't know if you can see them. Yeah. So thank you for everyone that's dropped the questions in already. Remember, there is still time if you still want to add questions.
Thank you. Well, and Kelly, and there was one that you provided with me from Tony, it was even last week. So appreciate, Tony, for the question before the session. So I think it's only right I answer yours before I start looking through those in the Q&A. So Tony, I am paraphrasing slightly here, Tony, but I think your question was surrounding observations of bad practice of contractors having operatives share respiratory protection. Operatives changing shifts overnight, new operatives coming on site and then using the same device, same mask, powered system that maybe we used by colleagues the day before. So I think it's a really, really good question. And I think with your industry, I can't influence what is done, but I think you got to consider the high risk nature of your industry, and I think typically most respiratory products will be individual issue. So other industries, there may be degrees of sharing equipment, and really when it comes to powered air devices, generally the powered air devices is quite often shared, and I'm talking here about general industries, manufacturing, construction, for example. But then individuals will have individually issued masks, for example. Where I think we've got to have consideration in your industry is what's happened to that product when it was cleaned, when it was decontaminated the night before. And I think typically individual issue is what's seen within the industry, because people have got that responsibility. They're the ones that almost own that product or that ensemble of products. So they're the ones that are taking that consideration for cleaning, for decontamination, inspection, then the after use and before use as well. So I'm sure there are examples of it happening. It certainly happens in other industries. I can't influence. I don't think there's any guidance, not that I've seen out there from the HSE and ARCA. Happy to be pointed in that right direction. It will come down to individual sites and contractors putting in SOPs, but that would be my take on that topic. Okay, so I think we've got a question here from Matt when it comes to impact protection. So what impact protection does the visor on a full face RPE provide? It depends, Matt. So there will be products out there which provide F impact protection, B impact protection. There is a soon to be moving over in terms of eye protection and face protection, moving over from an EN standard to ISO standard. So there will be some changes in product markings in the coming years. So Matt, I haven't got a definitive answer on that. There are products out there which can provide up to B level of protection. And some which can provide F level of protection as well, but always best to check with the manufacturer. It should be marked on the visor as well. Okay, so just looks like another question from Matt here. So any equipment that does not require face fit testing? So yes, across our products, and speaking from 3M perspective, but also other manufacturers, there are what we call loose fitting devices. So these would typically be a helmet with a shroud around the neck, or going into a blouse or workwear. It might also be more of a kind of fabric head top, again, which is loose fitting. So these aren't designed to be tight fitting around the face. They can be worn by those with degrees of facial hair, and also do not need to be face fit tested. The issue with these types of products, certainly within your sector, is that notion of cleaning, decontamination. And also, when you're looking at the guidance from ARCA, there is that outline of tight fitting products. So there are products out there in the market, but are they going to be adequate for your industry? I guess that's going to be up for debate, which is why I think we've got the typical use of the tight fitting masks as well. Okay, so Jonathan, I think you've got a specific question around the filters of certain products. If you send me an email, and I can look into that a little bit more specifically, and I should have said there might be some questions that are very specific, or I might need to go back and look on. So Jonathan, thanks for that one. If you can send me an email, I can then follow that one up. Okay, so Clive, your point around FFP3 disposable respirators and your belief should not be used for that work. Yeah, I so you're asking if we can take a poll. All I can say and comment on disposable respirators, FFP3 respirators, and other products which can provide that assigned protection factor of 20 is exactly that. They can provide that assigned protection factor of 20. It all goes round to that notion of adequacy and suitability. So an FFP3 disposable respirator can provide that APF of 20. A half mask with a P3 filter can provide that APF of 20. Both are adequate, but it's going to come down to individual risk assessments, site risk assessment, individual risk assessments, when it comes to that suitability as well. So I'm sure we've all got different opinions on many different products, but when it comes to what's going to be used on site, ultimately it's going to come down to individuals, health and safety leads, making that informed decision on what's going to be not only adequate but also suitable for wearers as well. Kellyanne, you said they were going to be. Oh, there might be some more. I've only just clicked up here. Okay,
Yeah,
right. So there are a couple
sometimes.
more here.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a bit of time for it to refresh.
Yeah, yeah.
They should start coming through. If not, I can read them out.
Yeah. So I think I've got one here from Joseph. Looks like it's specific to qualitative face fit testing. So purchasing the small atomizer on a the bulb of face fit test kits. Joseph, if you send me an email, I've not looked at the bill of materials for a long time on the nebulizers. So send me an email and I will look into that for you. So Alan has got a question with regards to use of included here baby soap, but also detergents for cleaning masks. Always follow the guidance from the manufacturer. So I can't comment on general points there. What I can say is look at what the manufacturer are outlining when it comes to what they can use. Some provide cleaning wipes. So we're not talking about disinfection here, we're talking about general cleaning. So some will have prescribed cleaning wipes, maybe that they've manufactured or maybe that they know are suitable for use. They might talk about, certain off-the-shelf detergents that can be used. But the key is, unless the manufacturer said yes, this can be used, who's to say that there might be some degradation with what is being used? So certainly work with the manufacturer. And then Victoria, I think you've put in a question on Neil's behalf there. Yep. So compatibility of head protection and full face powered respirators. Yeah, it's a really good point, Neil, and something that not only in the asbestos industry but also other industries we often have spoken to us, that compatibility between a full face mask and a bump cap or a hard hat. I think our experience tells us that face fit testing is the way to go, because we've all got different facial features, sizes of heads, circumferences of heads, etc., which then influences where maybe the straps or the top of a full face mask fits in relation to the hard hat. And again, different manufacturers will have adjustability in hard hats. So again, I keep repeating myself, work with your manufacturer or manufacturers to maybe have some samples of different helmets. You might have chosen your respiratory option that you're going to go ahead with. Work with your distributors, work with your manufacturers, get some samples of possible adequate hard hats, bump caps, and carry out face fit testing with it. Try some trials, if you will, get people to wear the products in a classroom environment to see, not only are they right for compatibility, but the helmet's not falling off. So there's my take is there's no hard and fast rule, but work with manufacturers to see what they've got available. And again, they might have some specific anecdotal guidance as well. Okay.
I think, George, just as you're just filtering through, Emma, you've asked about the slides. Will they be available? I am going to email the recording for the webinar, so you will be able to watch the beginning that you missed.
Okay, so Mark, a specific question on filters. I'm just trying to reread this again. Turbo hood filters. I think I'll take that one offline, Mark, because there's so many acronyms in there. I'm on a Monday morning, I'm struggling to comprehend a coherent answer on that one. So I'll take that one offline, Mark. And if you can send me an email, and I'm sure Kellyanne, you're going to send me anything that's not been answered, I can pick those up. So I think that looks like everything from the Q&A.
I don't know if there's some people may have gone into the chat. Let's have a look.
Okay.
I think you've covered them, George.
Yeah, I think I've covered a lot of those topics. There is discussions there around some of our other turbos, which maybe aren't so akin for licensed asbestos work in comparison to the others that I discussed, because of the kind of thorough cleaning decontamination. But again, if anyone wants to take anything offline, by all means do. And
That's
what
brilliant.
I will, as you're maybe closing out, Kelly, I'll just put in our personal helpline email address into
Yeah, of
the
course,
chat.
that'd be really helpful. I think that is it, George.
Oh no, there's another one in chat.
Okay. So Matt here, been asked this question when delivering asbestos. I assume that's asbestos awareness training, and I've always advised tight fitting, but it's good to know the hood is available. Yeah, so I guess this isn't a question for me to answer. Like I said earlier, there is the outlining from the HSE and also ARCA that tight fitting options are first and foremost consideration. The HSE do, as you've seen and as you can find, do outline consideration of loose fitting device, but like I said a couple of times, that then comes the possible issue or inability to decontaminate such products. And again, not speaking on all manufacturers' behalfs, but manufacturers have got extensive information with regards to cleaning and decontamination of tight fitting face pieces, but generally not so much on loose fitting face pieces.
Fabulous. Thank you, George. I'm just having a quick scoop just in case I've missed anything. No.
Oh.
Fabulous. You worked through all the questions, George, and perfect timing too. If anyone does lead this webinar and like George says, if there is any further questions, you're quite happy to look at them at a later date.
Absolutely, yep.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Amazing presentation, George. Again, UKATA are really grateful that you've done this, as a lot of our members and tutors have asked for this. So thank you, and thank you for making it specific to the questionnaire that we put out. That's so helpful. And I hope you have all enjoyed today. Just to let you know that, like I say, I will be sending a thank you email out. I will be sending the recording. I will be putting in a feedback form. So if you could, please fill that feedback form. And it just helps us obviously improve and moving forward, looking at your needs and wants. That'd be amazing. UKATA are at the Contime Expo on Wednesday. So if you are going to the Contime Expedition in Birmingham, pop down to our stand, come say hello. I will be there with Leonie and Liv at membership. So pop by, say hello, have a drink with us. It'd be great to see you. Our next webinar is going to be from Chris Bishop, our UK director. Keep an eye on the details and the dates for that upcoming webinar. Again, it'll be beneficial if anyone who hasn't signed up for our newsletter, go to our website, sign up, and you'll be on top form with everything that's coming up. Again, thank you so much, George. We really do appreciate it. Have a lovely day, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we look forward to seeing you to our next webinar. Thank you.
Thanks all. Thank you.
Thanks, George.